Hi, thank you for stopping by. I'm going to do a video today. I'm up to the veining on the Bountiful Baby Elsie kit. So I thought I'd do a video showing how I do my veins. She had been base coat. She has 5 layers, colors of modeling. So my neck, and she's been baked. I'm using the Genesis heat set paints. So she has been baked, and now we're up to the veining. Let's set her aside. I do use the Bountiful Baby's custom vein blue. That's the real spot on color. I think it works really well. And also I recently for veins started using a mineral spirits instead of thinner. It's something I'm kind of trialing. Mineral spirits are a bit thicker, so I think I'm going to get less running with that, and so far that seems to be working a little better for me than the thinner. And of course I always get dust and I don't know where it comes from. Alright, so you're going to put whatever you're using, thinner or mineral spirits, you certainly can use either one, in your well. And there is no end to dust. So add your vein blue straight from the jar, just a little at a time. You do want this to be translucent. You can always go back and add layers, but blue is a staining color, and that means it's going to stay. It's really hard to get off. So you don't want to go too dark. You can always build up your color. I usually end up being so light that I can't even see where the first layer of veining is, and then I kind of just have to go back and redo them. And so I always err on the side of caution. You can also try it on your test piece and kind of wait for that to dry. I think we're definitely too light though. It's usually kind of hard to tell until it dries how much you're gonna see. This color, this blue, will separate very quickly. I find it does it a little less with the mineral spirits, but if you're using thinner, it's gonna separate quick. Every time you dip your brush back in here, you're gonna want to stir it, or you're gonna get uneven color. So just get in the habit. That's pretty much true with anything that you're doing. In between every dip, even if 30 seconds have gone by, it separates. So get in the habit of that. Now we might be too dark. I think we're all right. Maybe another, bring it down just a drop or two. Another thing you want to be real careful with, being that you are using blue, is you're gonna mess up your doll if you're not careful. So you get a little smear of blue on your gloves or something, you're gonna stain your doll. I try to avoid holding anything but the neck to begin with. That decreases my chance, a couple heads in the oven, of that being an issue. Alright, so it does separate. I can see it already, even in those few seconds. So you get your blue, tiny little brush. I'm using a 20/0, so basically a size 2. She's a little doll, so I'm going to keep them pretty tiny. And I usually start in the middle of my forehead. Keep telling yourself squiggly, squiggly, squiggly. You really, really want to avoid any straight lines. They will stand out, and you don't want them to stand out. So I usually come across the nose and then head up. And I don't have my little, there it is. I feather out the edges. You don't want abrupt stops to your veins. And you're almost kind of describe it as making diagonals. Squiggly, squiggly. Kind of come up and meet them. Not diagonals, like a diamond shape, I'd say. Always dab just to get the most of it on. So as I come up, I'm going in one direction and then I'm kind of turning to where I meet these. They don't need to meet exactly. You want irregularity. For sure you want irregularity. Usually bring another one from the ear up. I'm heading in that direction. Try not to be nervous. You know, there's not, especially if your color's light, there's some room for forgiveness here. I do suggest getting kits on sale for your first couple dolls. Bountiful Baby has great, like 50% off sales. The whole first 5 or 6 dolls that I did, I only let myself buy them if they were on sale, and they're usually like 50% off sale. So repeating the same things on this side. Kind of coming up to meet. Now this is going to be covered in hair, but you still do your veins. It's good practice. Keep going with your practicing. And they do kind of meet, like think kind of like a spider web, and a very irregular spider web. And feather out my ends. No harsh ending. And you have a little freedom in the back. Like I said, it's going to be covered in hair, so here's your time to practice your colors, practice your wiggles. It's easy to do a straight line. Your body kind of naturally wants to do that. There you see with that's kind of like the diamond shape that I was talking about. I like to do one behind the ear where that skin is thin because of the skull bone there. And then I think I'll make kind of another diamond, your regular diamond shape here. I don't know if you can see that with the glare of the wet. You really shouldn't see blue. It shouldn't be jumping out at you that you're applying blue. Again, behind my ears. And kind of connect them to this one, making another little irregular diamond shape there. You're finding their way up. You might not, I'm trying to catch a glare here for you so you can see what I'm seeing. Not at all actually rehearsed in making videos, so my apologies. I don't want to help, but I'm trying to help beginners because I am actually pretty much still a beginner. And I think that's good to learn from other people who are fairly new, so we haven't forgotten what it's like. I was always so nervous to start on anything. You know, probably way more meticulous than I needed to be. But I guess it's better to start off being too meticulous and scale back than to start off being too sloppy and have to keep having dolls that aren't sellable because you're not taking your time. Alright, I like to do some veining under the chin. That's something I see on real babies. Now I've got some wrinkles here, and you're gonna want to make sure your brush is not too wet. And I kind of actually even lift it off just a bit when I get to the crease, because you don't want the paint's gonna want to pool in there and run along that wrinkle, and you don't want that. You can use a toothpick to pull it out. You can use a fine tip Q-tip. And then I'll bring this one up. Oh, I'm sorry. I came along here. Bring this one up. I'll just take it up there. I don't want it too noticeable by the lips, so I'm going to blot that just a bit. Now, a little trick that I do that's been helpful for me to stay irregular and not get too straight, not get too repetitive, is if you do this after you're modeling, which I think is pretty much how people do it, you can almost use those little shapes as a guide, the little shapes that are created from your modeling sponge. When I get into like tiny capillaries, or I want to add veining on my legs and stuff, sometimes I'll follow those almost like a roadmap, almost like I'm just darkening what's already there. And that really helps me get more irregular with where I'm going. You see the modeling? You could follow some of those as long as you're in the area you're going for with the veins. That gives you a little bit of a guide. I think we have a pretty good color there. It's probably hard to see on here. As it dries, I'll be able to see how dark it really is. That's really all it needs. This is pretty good modeling on here, so that I don't want to go too overboard with the veins. I am going to come back and do tiny capillaries on the eyelids. I add a little bit of capillaries on the cheeks, a little bit on the nostrils, and I do get into the ears now, and I do ones on there. I did that recently, and I really, really liked it. I love those little details. I mean, that's what we're looking for, right? So I think that the face is so, so important, so spend your time there. So we'll let that dry. And I'm gonna keep going here. I'm gonna do a limb for you. I'm gonna do the hand. This is a 3/4 arm. It's my first 3/4 arm doll. I do really like those. I love the full limbs because of the clothing options that you can wear to dress them. I'm sure they're definitely more popular than the 3/4. But I recently got a doll, 3/4 arms and legs, and I definitely see the appeal to that because they are super cuddly and way more posable. So we will see. It was a kit on sale, so I thought it'd be a good way to try out something different. Now when I do the veins on the hands, because I gotta hold it, I'm gonna start at the hand and work my way back up the arm so that I can finish out here, holding here, because it's definitely hard to try to keep that steady when you're holding way back here. So start at your fingers. And we'll start. I just have some pictures. I suggest Googling images, guides for veining. Obviously, there's tons of videos out there. I learned completely from multiple artists who shared their gifts with us on YouTube, and it is so generous of them to do it. And before I even started, I can't even count how many hours I studied before I got started, and it was worth it. I was able to sell my very first baby doll. Customer was very happy. I had no throwaway babies, knock on wood, yet. But if that happens, that's okay. You need to just accept that. You can always donate them. All right, so just just breathe. It's okay. Again, we are gonna have to watch creases, especially in things like hands. All right, I like to start at the wrist. I use my own very visible veins. I'm a redhead, so I have pretty much like see-through skin. And what I tell myself for the wrist, H, the letter H, a wonky H. That's the main part, the biggest part. And then there's a couple little branches going off of that. So that's what I'm gonna start doing. Irregular H. You know, I think it'd be really cool to make a video if I had like a real throwaway kit, something real cheap, or a bunch of test limbs, and do it in like a super dark blue so that the audience can actually see what we're doing. That might be worth tossing a kit for that. Just get a couple limbs. Now I'm just adding another little offshoot from that main H. I'm gonna bring it up onto my palm. Remember, I kind of jump over the wrinkles. You don't want to completely avoid them because you want that color to continue, but I don't drag my brush straight across those wrinkles because it's going to pull in there. Feathering out my ends. I like to take my veins up into the fingers. I usually just do one. I go right up to the fingertip. I do that on each finger. where the blood's gonna go. Yeah, because I'm not putting too much paint on my brush, I'm not really having issues. It's not pooling in there because I'm light. My color's not too dark. It's not gonna be a irreversible mistake. I think probably a lot of the veining that I do ends up, it'll never be noticed by the customer, whether I do it or not, but I like to do it. It's one of my favorite steps. I know it's there. If you look closely, you'd be able to see it. I bring a rather prominent vein down along the thumb. Bounce a little bit over my wrinkles so I don't get too much. Now I got my blood flow there. I don't usually find a need to blot too much, especially mineral spirits is a little bit thicker. It's not running, I'm not having that issue. You know, careful not to touch over here. I'm gonna flip it over into the back of my hand. I'm gonna give myself a main vein. Now here's where I was talking about following the mottling lines, and I know you're probably not gonna be able to see. I don't really know what I can possibly do about that, but I'll just try to describe it. To keep myself from getting too straight, I'm gonna follow one of my mottling lines, and then I get a real nice crooked vein there. I'm gonna feather out my vein, and what we're mimicking when we feather out the ends, it's preventing an abrupt stop, and it's as if the vein is going deeper into the body, so you wouldn't be seeing it as much. And when it's closer to the top, that's where we're seeing it. So the starting and stopping, they don't need to be continuous and follow the whole arm the whole way around. You don't really want that. That's not realistic. They are going to go deep. They're going to be shallow. And that's what's changing it. Now I'm bringing it up to my hand, and I'm going to kind of spider webbing it out. I want it to go to each finger. Each finger gets blood supply, so each finger on my dolls get a vein. You can definitely do a simpler version of this. Please don't think all my over meticulous painting is necessary. You don't have to go this far, and I'm sure overall it doesn't make a huge difference. Like I said, I know it's there, and I appreciate it when I'm looking at them. Thumb, it's a nice strong vein coming up. And I'm going to bring that down. I'm just going to let that fade away. That's probably good. I'm going to blot this one. Oh, that's get too dark. So you can kind of see with the shine there of the light what I've been doing. Just a couple more spots here. Again, you see that I am mixing my paint. Continuously mixing my paint. It will always separate rather quickly. I like to concentrate some veins on the inner part of the arm. That skin tends to be thinner. That's on the inside of your elbow, upper arm. And I like the head. You do some roughly diamond shape. I'll bring one down here. Now, I could meet up with my wrist one, that's fine. But again, give it a little changes in depth. Where does it closer to the skin? Where is it further into the body? I think really that's probably not going to worry too much. Don't be afraid. If you're just having fun with it, go ahead and add a couple more. There's a lot of freedom, because you know every single body on a human on this earth is different. Alright. So there is not an exact roadmap to this. I have to remember to dust. I'm supposed to be not forgetting that and setting a good example. Always dust. Same as with the arm, I am going to start at the foot so that I can support what I'm doing. Now the feet are very veiny, and here I want you to remember the letter Y. because we're going to be making a lot of Ys. Now there's also a lot of wrinkles we have to be concerned with here. We want to watch that it's not pooling in there. So again, I kind of bounce over them, but now they'll get creased too. They'll get color when they're creased. So they're not going to show up as a blank area. And I would much rather come back and add creasing color than have a bunch of blue rolling all around in my wrinkles. And just like the fingers, I like to vein each of my little toes. Take it right up to the top. Squiggly. I usually do like one main vein through the bottom of the foot, and then I give my tree some branches, and I'll show you right now where those branches are going. Alright, we're gonna start going up to the top. Now I think this is a very important part. I think it's an area that's gonna get looked at a lot by your customer. So I do like, how am I gonna describe this? Like an upside down Y. Yeah, and I do about 3 of them, squiggly squigglies. Catch the glare here. Upside down Y. Now I'm gonna come back to where I made that main vein, and I'm gonna pull those ends of the Y down to meet up with my, oh, I'm terrible at this, I'm sorry, I'm really trying to meet up with my main vein. Let me take a second. I really should have like drawing paper here for you guys to show you what I mean, what I'm doing. Do I have a pen or a pencil? I had a pencil. Oh, all right, so just real quick here. Okay, weird foot, right? All right, so I have a main vein. It is branching off into my toes. Each toe gets a little vein. All right, and then each side is going to get an upside down Y. So what we're doing, it's upside down if you had the foot over top. It's basically giving it some Ys, and they're starting at the bottom and they will go up over the sides. So you can do about 3 on either side. That's really weird, right? And when we go to the top of the foot, here's your little toes. It's going to be essentially the same thing that was on the bottom. Only when these Ys come up, they're going to kind of be like that by the time they get here from the other side. And they're going to also attach to that main vein. That's just obviously really rough draft there. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm connecting the branches of my Y to my tree, to the main vein that's going down the middle. And I'll come back and attach those to the top when I get to that. So now I'm gonna do the other side. These are my Ys. Okay, do 3 over there. So I'm gonna flip over and give this foot pretty prominent vein going down the middle. Bouncing over my wrinkles. It's hard to do this at an angle you can see. I'm gonna get that blood supply to my toes. Maybe I'll start this branch down a bit lower and this one off of that one. And because my paint is still wet and shiny in the light, I can see where those ends of the Ys are. So I'm just gonna pull them up. Get this and attach it to my main vein. Yeah, you can see those? I'm just grabbing them from the top. I'm pulling them into my main vein down the middle of the foot. And there's really nothing to feather out down there because they are all connected. All right, I'm going to give it a nice ankle. I love the ankle vein. And I think I'll just have this one ends feather. So I'll drag that paint away. Here it is, going into the depth of that one. I like a good heel vein. I'm gonna follow that main vein I had done under there, and I'm gonna let that go up. And I see I didn't mix enough, and now suddenly I have a darker blue. And that is my fault, because I'm not paying attention. Feather my end. And this one I'm gonna blot, because it's a little darker than all the rest. Another place you can add some veins, might be a little tricky to get to, but there's the thinner skin area under the knee. So I like to do a couple on the calf. Good, another spot is the thighs. And I usually just kind of reminds you of what we were doing up top on the head with those irregular diamonds that we were doing. So get a couple half diamonds started up top. So I have 3 dogs. My neighbors have 3 dogs on either side of me. So that will be unavoidable, the interruption of barking. So I've got a couple diamonds there, a few diamonds, half diamonds started. So I'm gonna go ahead and just continue branching them out and connecting them. Go connect those two. Go bring this one. I'll let that one follow. And I'll feather it out. Like I said, you do have some freedom here. You're not going to be graded specifically on where they are. You are looking for an overall look. You want them to be there. I think every collector really values good veining. All right. So I'll go back and do the other arm and leg off camera. Now, that was my first layer, and it's definitely light. Like, I am sitting right here and I can't see it. So I can see it probably just enough to follow it to do another layer. And that's okay. That's still better than it being too dark, and I can't do anything about that once that happens. And if that happens to you and you did a real light layer and you can't even see those veins, then darken up your blue, test it on your test limb, and go through it again, even just disregarding your first layer. If you can't see it now, you're not going to see it later, and that's fine. Just, you know, it's still varying depths of veins, so just chalk it up to another little mottling layer and go ahead and do it again with a slightly darker color, and consider it practice. So hopefully that was helpful to you. I'm going to go ahead and continue here with Elsie, and we'll see you again for another subject. All right, have a great day, guys.